Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher here from Sweetwater Sound, and Richard, the founder of Pittsburgh Modular, is back again. And I'm always glad when he comes by because he always brings a new toy, and this one is spectacular. This is the Taiga.
This is the new Pittsburgh Modular synthesizer. This is my baby. This is something that I've personally been working on for 2.5 years. This shows sort of the power of what Pittsburgh Modular has been building up to. And I think it's a really special instrument. I'm very biased though. But I came here today to show to you and to give you a tour and to talk about it.
And just looking at it, it does not look like any other module I've ever seen. And to be clear, although this is in a case and fully self-standing and self-running, you take out the screws and that just drops right into any Eurorack rack.
Right into any Eurorack case that's large enough to hold it. This can absolutely go anywhere.
And what is the width?
60 HP. But within that 60 HP, it is dense. You can see that everything's in there relatively tight, but you have the MIDI to CV converter with a full arpeggiator and sequencer and a lot of random stuff built in. I love random and I love generative. It's all built into there. We have 3 oscillators. Now all the oscillators are exactly the same in that they have several geometric waveforms. You have your sine, saw, square, a triangle. But you also have these sort of half shapes, and what they're doing is we're sort of morphing them we're leaving the sound, but we're changing the harmonics so that when we hit the wave folder, and I didn't mention, each oscillator has a dedicated wave folder.
So there's 3 separate wave folders.
3 separate wave folders in this. Each one you can hit with those waveforms, so we can create some really highly complex sounds out of this. So after those oscillators, then we're going to pass into the mixer. Now the mixer is interesting. We have a preamp for external sound, so if you wanted to patch in an external synth or even a guitar pedal or something like that, it has a 30x gain. So even if you just wanted to use it within this, you can overdrive it. It has a really nice soft clipping circuit, so it's never going to sound harsh, but it's going to sound powerful.
Okay.
That's tied to a 4-channel mixer. Now the mixer even itself is deep. The oscillator each has a channel, and then there's a noise with a channel, but you can break that out in the patch bay because everything here is fully modular, meaning that the oscillator can be broken up and used separately, the mixer can be used separately, the filter, the ADSRs. But talking about the mixer, channel 1 and channel 2 can be broken out into a separate mixer. So what you can have is 1 4-channel mixer or 2 2-channel mixers.
Okay.
That's interesting because you can mix then, you could use 2 of the channels for CV if you want. Or you can have 2 separate audio channels going through that are independent. Maybe you run 2 waveforms through the mixer into the filter and you want to join them up after that. Something like that. So it gives you a world of possibilities built into what would seem like just a utility mixer, but it's actually very deep.
So it's really a semi-modular, but can absolutely be broken into fully modular.
Yes, it's semi-modular in the sense that it has 1 panel. But every other aspect of this is a fully modular synthesizer. That said, it is normal, so you don't need to use patch cables. This is really designed to be a player's synth. It's meant to be a lead or a bass line synth, pads, but it's meant to be turn it on and go and get huge, beautiful new sounds with. That said, you can certainly pull out some patch cables and go to town with this thing.
And so now moving along from left to right, we're now moving into the filter section.
The filter section is the famous Pittsburgh filter. This is our state variable filter that Michael and I designed 10, 12 years ago at this point. And it has the low pass, band pass, high pass, and combinations of all of them in there as well. So if you want your low and high or your low and band, which low and band pass turned into something that I never really thought about too much. But working on this, it's turned into my favorite response because it adds some mid-range where you don't expect it to be and just adds some texture there that's just absolutely beautiful. The filter, from what we've done in the past, is also interesting. We have 2 CV inputs. So one, we have normal to the LFO. And then the second one, we have normal to one of the 2 ADSRs. So these are full analog ADSRs, one tied to the filter, the other one tied to the Dynamics controller.
And I see you can flip the polarity on that as well.
You absolutely can. So if you want to use the envelope to pull it backwards, you can get that sucking filter sound.
And let's talk a little bit about the resonance, because I know that's something that you're always very proud about your filters, is you crank that resonance, keep your bass, sweep freely from low to high, no dropouts, no changes.
There's no dead spots. One of the key parts of our filter is that it has this idea of infinite resonance without self-oscillation. So the filter itself doesn't self-oscillate, but that's good because you can crank that resonance all day long and it's never going to fall into self-oscillation. It's never going to overdrive. It's always going to be that clean, warm, gummy, buttery sound that you hope for.
And now we're moving over to the Dynamics.
The Dynamics, this is a very Pittsburgh circuit. This is something that's special to us, that we are building on something Don Buchla started many, many years ago back in the 60s called the low-pass gate. Now, the idea of a low-pass gate is it's not quite a VCA, it's not quite a filter, it's kind of both at the same time. One of the problems with his circuit is that it uses this component called a Vactrol, and it's not terribly interesting what a Vactrol is, but a Vactrol can be very picky. You buy 100 of them, and 10 of them are great, and 90 of them you got to throw away. You also can't really control them that well. So what we did is we started from scratch. We said we love that sound, that very vibrant, plucky, natural sound. How can we do that in a 100% analog way without this component? So what we came up with was we call the Dynamics circuit. So as you open it up, it's adding harmonics to the sound. And as you're closing it down, you're removing those harmonics. So the sounds coming out of this act and sound like sounds around us, sounds in nature. We also have it, because it has that pluckiness, that snappiness to it, we can dynamically change that. So you can set the length of that. It's like having its own decay envelope built in. You can set the length of that, and you can voltage control that as well, which is really, really nice because you can set it to, say, velocity. And the harder you strike, the longer you get. So you can really use this to dynamically play. And there's resonance as well built in, so you can use low-pass gate mode and have resonance in your Dynamics circuit acting as your VCA. So it's adding so much life to the sound.
And as I've been learning more about the differences between East and West synthesis, especially via the East Beast and West Pest, I'm looking at this, and it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of both in this one.
Yeah, this one doesn't really live anywhere specifically. This is sort of a collection of my favorite sounds, all put into one box. And I don't live on the East Coast or West Coast. I play a modular synthesizer that has everything in it. And this sort of celebrates that. But not only celebrates it, I was able to go through and tune all of these pieces to really shine with each other.
And then I look over at the far end, and I see you have a delay.
Michael and I have had BBD delays, modular versions of BBD delays since day one. I love delay. I have 30 delay guitar pedals at home. You know, I'm a freak about this stuff. So this is something that, you know, if we're going to do the instrument of my dreams, the instrument for me, it absolutely had to have a BBD delay in it. So this has two 4096 BBD chips in it, so we can get almost a second, about 8/9 of a second out of it. But it's that warm, gooey BBD analog sound, so it's dark and mysterious and can get a little bit noisy, but oh, it sounds so good.
And if you want to learn more about BBD Bucket Brigade, I've done a video specifically, what is Bucket Brigade delay. Watch that, you'll learn a whole lot more about that. But to put it in one word, it's an analog delay. So as cool as it is to have all of these knobs, it looks like, man, you've got inputs for every single one of these things. I mean, that is a lot of patch points for something this size.
Well, you don't want to leave anything out. You want to make sure that everything is accessible, and you really need to be able to use this as a sound design tool. You have to have access to that stuff. So each section has a full complement of inputs and outputs. We didn't leave anything out. In addition to that, there's some extra things that are only patch points that didn't need any particular UI. There's a sample and hold in there. There is a mixer splitter in there, so it's 2 in, 2 out. You can use it as to split a signal, or you can mix 2 signals as a unity and then patch that somewhere else. So there's extra little features in there, as well as not only having all the ins and outs necessary to really expand on this and make this a part of this or a much larger modular setup.
And as one of the CV inputs that I really love, I see that you have time control over the delay, which means, one, you can do really wacky things, but you can also do really subtle and beautiful chorus. If you make the delay time really short, you can get some flange out of it. Just really nice to have modulated analog delay.
And that's one of the advantages of putting it in the unit and not just having it in a pedal. Everything because I wanted this to be compact and full of my favorite stuff, everything that's in here had to earn its place. And to just put a delay in here that you couldn't control with CV, you could just use a pedal for that. So it had to be built in.
And then I'm looking way over here on the left, and although it has no keyboard, it does have arpeggiator, and I can see the various sources of the random and its ability to transpose, the octave change. So kind of like your famous arpeggiator sequencer, I'm getting very used to having that and playing with it.
It's nice to have built in. This one takes it a few steps deeper because every time, you start tweaking this, you're like, oh, what if I could add this or what if I could add that? So this has some generative stuff, some randomized stuff built in, but it has your standard stuff. You can go up and down octaves, up to a 5-octave range, which is really nice when you have analog oscillators that you can shift them without having to retune them each time.
And if I'm counting correctly, I think you got like 15 entirely separate modules in here in 60 HP, all individually accessible. They can be completely isolated from each other. You can bring anything out to anything back in without going through anything else. It's like you can completely disconnect all of that. And for all of that to fit into 60 HP and at the price, I mean, I don't know how you got it down to that price, but wow. Just click on the link if you want to see the price.
Yeah, because we've been designing stuff for Eurorack for so long, we tend to condense things together because space is of a premium in Eurorack. If this was a standalone instrument, it would take up the whole table. But because we've compacted, there's so much in there, and it really is an amazing sounding piece of kit.
Okay, well, that's a great excuse to start making sound. So let's do that. By the way, I'm using the Arturia KeyStep Pro, but I will be using the sequencer arpeggiator on here. I'm only going to just be sending MIDI notes. Nothing else is coming from this. Wow, that is just an amazing combination of East Coast and West Coast sound all in one box. Tremendous power, and I'm repeating myself, but you got to click on the link and see the price on this thing. You are not going to believe it. And that includes the case and the power supply and everything else as well. Just any last thoughts about your baby?
As you can hear from Planet, we didn't put this thing in guardrails. So the sounds go way out of line. You can take things further than you typically would be on an instrument because we want you to be able to push it. You can certainly rein it in, but you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely hear that. And again, really appreciate having the delay in there as well. If you have any further questions about the Taiga or any of the other Create Audio or Pittsburgh Modular products, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. My name is Daniel Fisher. This is Richard from Pittsburgh Modular. Thank you very much for watching.